When you're young, Halloween feels like magic. Sleepovers, scary movies, and one last house with the lights still on. But the scariest moments come when the fun stops and silence takes over. These are true stories of kids who found out they weren't alone, scratching on windows, footsteps in the dark, and voices from the shadows. Once you hear them, you'll never look at the last house on the block the same way again. This story was sent to me by someone named Megan. She told me she still hates the sound of scratching on glass because of this night. When I was 11, Halloween meant two things: candy and sleepovers. That year, my neighbor Emma invited a group of us over for a Halloween party. Her parents went all out. Pizza boxes stacked high, bowls of popcorn, and a kitchen counter covered in soda cans. They even rented scary movies for us to watch on the old box TV in their living room. For 11-year-olds, that was paradise. There were 6 of us in total, all crammed into sleeping bags, sugar buzzing through our veins. Emma was dressed as a witch, her face still streaked green from the party earlier. I wore a cat costume my mom made with felt ears hot glued to a headband. 2 of the boys were superheroes. One girl was a ghost with a sheet that kept slipping, and my best friend had a clown mask she refused to take off. We thought we looked terrifying, but looking back, we probably looked ridiculous. Emma's house sat at the edge of the neighborhood, pressed right up against a thick line of woods. In the daylight, it just looked like trees, but at night the woods turned into a black wall. That living room window looked straight into them, and none of us liked glancing out when the lights were off. By the time Emma's parents said goodnight, it was almost midnight. We dragged our sleeping bags into a circle on the carpet, turned off the lights, and put on the first scary movie. The glow of the TV flickered across our faces while we stuffed ourselves with candy and dared each other not to scream. It was the perfect Halloween, until we heard the scratching. At first, I thought it was part of the movie, a faint, long scrape. But then it came again, software drawn out, right against the glass of the big window behind us. Everyone went quiet. Emma laughed nervously. Probably a branch, the wind or something. We nodded, trying to believe her. The TV kept playing, but none of us were watching anymore. We sat frozen, ears straining. The scratching came again, louder this time, like fingernails dragging across glass. "Who's doing that?" one of the boys whispered. Nobody answered. The sound stopped for a minute, just long enough for us to start breathing again. Then came the tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, rhythmic, not random. Emma's face went pale. She crawled toward the curtain, her hand trembling. "It's nothing," she whispered, more to herself than to us. She yanked the curtain back, and we all screamed. A pale hand pressed flat against the glass, fingers splayed wide, too high to belong to any of us. The skin looked gray in the TV light. Emma dropped the curtain and scrambled back into the circle. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. We just stared at each other, our breathing fast and shallow. Finally, one of the boys whispered, "It's a prank, right?" "One of your neighbors?" Emma shook her head. "No one lives back there, it's just woods." We tried to convince ourselves it was nothing, but the tapping started again. This time, faster, harder, tap, tap, tap. We screamed again and dove into our sleeping bags, pulling them up like blankets could protect us. The TV flickered, then cut out, plunging the room into darkness. The only sound was our ragged breathing, until we heard the back door creak open. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the sound of footsteps across the kitchen floor made my blood run cold. Slow, heavy steps, each one deliberate. Someone was inside. Emma clapped her hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. My chest hurt from holding my breath. The footsteps grew louder, moving down the hallway that led straight to the living room. We scrambled, bumping into each other, tripping over candy wrappers and pillows. Someone hissed, "Hide!" We ran into Emma's bedroom, slamming the door and locking it. The six of us huddled in the corner, backs pressed to the wall, straining to hear. The footsteps reached the hallway. Boards creaked under the weight. Whoever it was moved slowly, like they wanted us to know they were coming. The doorknob rattled once, twice. We froze, not even breathing. Then silence. We waited, praying. After a long moment, the footsteps moved away, fading down the hall back toward the kitchen. But we didn't dare move. Every sound was torture. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, the faint brush of leaves against the house. We sat there all night, clutching each other, too scared to even whisper. When the sun finally rose, we crept out. The back door was locked. Emma's parents swore it had been that way all night. They told us it was just our imaginations, that kids work themselves up on Halloween. But we knew better. On the window, faint and smeared, were handprints. Large ones, too high up to belong to any of us. I still see those fingers when I close my eyes. And every Halloween since, if I hear scratching on a window, I feel 11 again. Stuck in that dark living room, waiting for the door to rattle. And I still wonder, whoever walked through that house that night, why didn't they come into the room? Why didn't they finish what they started? This story was sent to me by someone named Jordan. He told me he hasn't finished a block on Halloween night since the year this happened. I was 9 years old, and back then Halloween was the highlight of the year. Me, my cousin Nate, and my neighbor Sarah had been out since sunset, running from house to house with pillowcases instead of plastic pumpkins, because we thought it made us look serious. By the time the night was winding down, our arms ached from the weight, but our greed pushed us to keep going. The streets were emptying. Jack-o'-lanterns were burned low. Porch lights started blinking off one by one, and the air was colder than when we'd started. You could smell wet leaves and candle wax. Most kids were home by then, trading candy on their living room floors. But the three of us had one more goal: finish the block. That's when we saw it. At the very end of the street, one house still had its porch light on. We grinned at each other. "Last one," Nate said through his rubber werewolf mask. His breath fogged through the plastic snout. Sarah groaned, adjusting her crooked fairy wings. Better be worth it, my feet hurt. But we couldn't resist. The rule was simple: light on, you go. We trudged down the cracked sidewalk, candy bags thumping against our knees. The house itself didn't stand out much. 2 stories, chipped paint, decorations scattered across the yard. A scarecrow leaned against the porch railing, its floppy hat shadowing stitched eyes and a sewn-on smile. A single pumpkin flickered weakly by the steps, the candle nearly out. The door stood half open. We hesitated. Nate tried to shrug it off. Probably just forgot to shut it. Sarah frowned. Creepy. I tightened my grip on my pillowcase, the plastic wrappers crinkling inside. My chest felt heavy, but I followed anyway. The candy bowl sat just inside the doorway, piled high with chocolate bars, full size. Jackpot, Nate grinned. He pushed the door wider. The smell hit us first. Not candy, not pizza or popcorn like the other houses. Something sour, like damp laundry left too long in a basement. We crouched by the bowl, each grabbing a bar. That's when I noticed something that froze me in place. The wrappers weren't sealed right. The folds were messy, some taped shut, others with uneven tiers. "Guys," I whispered, "these don't look right." Nate shrugged. "Who cares? Freeze free." He shoved one into his bag. Sarah shook her head. Someone messed with these. Before we could argue, a sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Upstairs. Steady, deliberate. Thump, thump, thump. We all looked up at the same time. The ceiling creaked above us. Nate swallowed. Guess someone's home. But his voice didn't sound sure. The footsteps stopped right above us. The air felt thick, pressing down. Then came a voice. Low, calm, flat. Close the door. We froze. The words carried down the stairs like they were meant just for us. Sarah dropped the candy bar she was holding. It hit the wood floor with a dull thud. Close it, the voice repeated. My chest clenched. Nate's hand twitched toward the doorknob, then pulled back. We all backed away together, hearts hammering. We stumbled onto the porch, shoving the door closed behind us. The scarecrow leaned slightly in the corner of my eye, its stitched smile aimed at us. Go, Sarah hissed. We bolted down the steps. Our candy bags thudded against our legs, wrappers spilling out behind us as we sprinted to the sidewalk. My lungs burned. Nate's mask twisted sideways as he gasped for air. Sarah's wings snapped when she tripped and nearly fell. We didn't stop until we reached Sarah's house halfway up the block. We pounded on the door, yelling for her mom. She opened it, startled at the sight of us red-faced and breathless. We babbled everything at once. Open door, candy, footsteps, the voice. Her mom frowned. That house? She shook her head. No one lives there, hasn't for years. We thought she was joking, but the next day we rode our bikes back. The porch light was off. The pumpkin was gone. The scarecrow was gone. The windows were boarded shut. Like the night before had never happened. Even now, almost 20 years later, I don't go to the last house on the block if its light's still on, because I'll always hear that voice again, calm and flat, echoing in my head. Close the door. Halloween ends when the lights go out, but the fear doesn't. The stories you heard tonight are real, and they remind us that the scariest things aren't in haunted houses. They're right outside your door. If you want more true horror like this, make sure you're subscribed, because the next knock you hear might not be a trick-or-treater.